So, hi ma'am, I am Major S. Manggubat from BSHM 3rd year. So, for today's video or record, it's all about Chapter 2, The Natural Law by St. Thomas Aquinas. So, introduction, Albert Camus opened his 1942 seminal book, The Myth of Sisyphus, by posing the question, why will I not kill myself today? Locally, such a dramatic recognition of the sorry condition of the world is echoed by a column of... So, kung Albert Camus daw, pag-open niya sa seminal book sa 1942, nagposing siya dito sa question nga, why will I not kill myself today? Ngano daw dili daw niya pat yun iyahang kaugalingon karon. So mao na iyahang kanang dramatic niya nga iyahang drama siyang kinabuhi. Jimenez David in the Daily Broadsheet, Philippine Daily Inquirer on 25 October 2003, when his frustration she asked, why would we not just close down the Philippines? Camus has lived through the two world wars, 1914 to 1918, 1939 to 1945. So kang Jimenez pod nga, why would we not just close down the Philippines? Mao po na ihang question sa ihang kinabuhi, and thus highlights the bitterness of his times and the task of man to live in sincerity, moderation, and justice with a playful heart, even while confronted with utter meaninglessness in life. Jimenez David saw too. So mauna iyang dapat daw kanang sa ilha daw kinabuhi dapat kanang kuan lang ba kanang malinawon ra ilhang pagpuyo diri sa kalibutan. An Italian Catholic priest who belongs to the religious order of preachers or Dominicans, Saint Thomas Aquinas was born in 1225. The title Aquinas identifies his place of origin, Aquino, which belonged originally to the kingdom of Naples or Naples, and about 120 km south of Rome. He was born to an affluent and influential family. His father was recognized as the Count of Aquino. So sa Italian Catholic priest, nabilong siya dito, na dito siyang panganak sa 1225 nga year. His early studies were under the tutelage of the Benedictine abbot of Monte Cassino, but at the age of 14. So sa early niya pag-study sa kuan dito sa Benedictine abbot of Monte Cassino, nag-age siya og 14. He enrolled at the University of Naples. Dito siya sa University of Naples nag-enrolled. He was deeply impressed by the Dominicans whom he later met at the university that Thomas decided to join the order of preachers at the age of 19 in 1242 instead of the Benedictines who were his Finnish teachers. So impress siya dito sa Dominicans sa mga kuan, sa mga university dito sa mga eskwelahan siguro nila. Si Thomas nag-decide nga mo join siya sa preachers na nag-edad siya og 19. After the struggle with his family who did not agree with his being a priest was finally settled. So sa pag-struggle daw sa iyang pamilya nga iyang pamilya dili agree sa iyang pagpapari. Thomas in 1248 studied with Albert the Great sa 1205 to 1280. Si Thomas daw nag-study about ni Albert the Great in Cologne, recognizing his student as a genius. Albert took Thomas with him to the University of Paris. So si Albert daw nagsuryanay daw sila ni Thomas nga dito siya pa eskwelahon sa University of Paris. Thomas later became the master of theology in this university, 1256. So sa panahon natong 1256, si Thomas daw kay na master siya sa theology. and remaining 18 years of his life were spent on lectures, instruction, writings, and quad, quad libits. So sa 18 years niya, murag nagtudlo siya, nag-instruction o nagsulat siya. Next is Thomas died on March 7, 1274, leaving behind him notable works like Summa Contra Gentiles, Summa Theologiae, and De Veritate. So sa 1274 years sa March 7, namatay si Thomas. The Catholic Church honors him as a doctor, a title given to saints who are recognized as giver of particularly important insight in the understanding of Christian doctrine or faith. So sa Catholic Church daw, gitawag siya og doktor. Kay manghitagunon man siya didto sa mga tawo. Og nakasabot siya sa mga Christian doctrine or sa pagtuo. Our present age not impervious to such attacks of absurdity, frustration, and near desperation. History, however, is gracefully replete with people who have exerted effort pointing out a viable way out of such darkness and confusion. One of the options, if one wants to call it that, was through the meeting between philosophy and a religion of revelation, that is Christianity. So ang tawag daw aning between philosophy and religion is Christianity. The best representative of this integration and arguably also an excellent thinking through of a reasonable way that addresses the question of the human person is the philosophy of St. Thomas Aquinas. Thomas' systemic approach that is meant to guide human action is known as an ethics of natural law. Dapat daw sa kang Thomas systemic kay dapat i-approach daw nga i-guide jud ang human action. Ang action sa mga tawo. Nga ang ethics daw kay about sa natural law, sa mga regulation about sa mga kanang mga mali or mga bawal. While his metaphysics harks back to medieval times of belief in God, his ethical system endures until contemporary times in the moral guidelines followed and lived out by religious believers who belong to the Catholic tradition. Et si Dios nan daritor or dertor, Thomas Aquinas begins from the standpoint of faith. So, dira do nagsugod si Thomas Aquinas sa faith jud, pagtuo. His perspective presupposes the existence of a God who is the author, source, and the goal end of all reality. This creator for Thomas, however, relates in freedom with the human person and so enables him or her in freedom to recognize through reason the very principle of foundations of all things. In accordance with this foundational knowledge, the human person can choose to act in such a way that is worthy of one's very reality. One who can reach the wisdom at the very heart of all things is obliged to act in accordance with his or her dignity. The human being then is said to be gifted with the ability to know the highest good that engage him or her freedom in choosing to act on the good that he or she ought to do. Freedom here is knowing the best goal and being able to reach for it through decisive action. So naaman jud tay mga tagsang-tagsang desisyon kung unsa ato ang mga desisyon. So dapat jud pilion jud nato nga saktong desisyon. Dili ta magpatakag desisyon nga kanang wrong. Next is conscience or conscience a natural law. The ability of man to know is important in his or her acting ethically. Hints of one follows St. Thomas' discussion on conscience. One is inclined to conclude that it is the proper functioning of reason in moving the human person towards an end goal that is fitting of his or her dignity. One cannot do the right thing if one does not know what it is. The famous dictate then to follow the conscience absolutely is tied to an obligation to educate. Not knowing St. Thomas is not an excuse. Even if one does not know, he or she is obliged to know if one acts badly out of ignorance and does not act to rectify the situation by battering to learn. That person is to be held accountable according to the angelic doctor. So about aning conscience and natural law is kuan ni jud og dignity sa ato ang self. If naay person nga dili makabuhat og kanang maayo, then wala siya kabalo kung unsa iyang buhaton. So next is while the conscience absolutely binds us in doing the good and avoiding evil. Conscience as reason is also absolutely tasked to be given formation. The conscience therefore can be mistaken and being so does not exempt the human person from culpability. So sa ato ang sa tagsa natong kinabuhi naa man jud tay mga sayop sa ato ang self. So dili jud nato malikayan ang atong mga mistake. Makabuhat batag maayo or dili. There are different kinds of conscience that may lead us to wrongdoing. So naadari ang kalus, perplex, scrupulous, and ignorant. Mao na mga different conscience nga dili nato malikayan og buhat sa ato ang kaugalingon, sa ato ang self. 3 contemporary question. So naapoy 3 contemporary question. There are relevant questions that can help the Filipino student appreciate Thomistic natural law. So dapat jud kaning question makatabang sa ato ang mga kuan Filipino, mga estudyante like me. It followed what has been earlier said that natural law is man's participation in the execution of the good and avoidance of evil through the use of his or her reason and will. So dapat jud sa kuan jud ni mga so dapat jud sa mga maayo or sa mga i-avoid nato ang mga dautan. Relevance of Aquinas today, who am I, who do I want to be, ug how can I get there? Mao nang 3 question ni Thomas Aquinas sa Thomistic natural law. Who am I? Kinsa ko? Thomistic natural law integrate the identity of the human person. If one is endowed with his or her own facticity, history, and abilities, his or her present reality is accessible to him or her through self-knowledge and reflection. This assessment of one's own strength and weaknesses is critical in being able to do good and avoid evil. So dapat sa ato ang strength and weaknesses sa ato ang self kay kuan nato ma-able nato ang good, then ma-avoid nato ang mga dautan. Malikayan nato ang mga dautan ug ma-apply nato ang mga maayo nga kuan, maayo nga mga butang. The relational and perfection of love in Aquinas. Although we have suspended God talk to make the case that natural law is relevant even for the human person without faith, the discussion of Thomistic ethics is incomplete if it does not end with the love that is directed towards God. Thomistic natural law is not Christian simply because It is an ethics reconcilable or compatible with faith. It is a disciplined system that finds ultimate foundation and perfection in the reality of God. While true it does not the Torah are afforded the autonomy of our reasonable ethics independent from faith, ultimate this ethics is given full meaning and perfection in our relationship with God. So kani sa kuan kani sa domestic natural law, dili jud ni sila Christian kay ilahang rang kuan ang ethics kay kuara kanang compatible kanang komportable ra sila sa pagtuo kung unsay ilahang tuuhan. Pero pag gi pero pag relation nila sa kang God, dara na sila nga naa na joy anang maayo nga or kanang nanadyo'y given nanadyo'y na meaning nanadyo'y nindot nga meaning pag atay relasyon sa Ginoo. Here the relational that is inherent in the natural order value. The human person is not only bound to find full maximum capacity of one's being in a search for self-actualization. He or she is not designed to find perfection on his or her own but thoroughly relates with other human persons and all of creation. So about to Japanese sa mga kuan um sa mga self-actualization nato. Next is conclusion. Thomas Aquinas was influential in his articulation of that theory of natural law. He showed us that the universe was determined by an order of love that ought to define the sense of the good of human being. So dito daw sa universe daw sa iyang pag-study kay naa dito ang love. Nag-define ang love na dito ang mga maayo nga mga tawo nga ilang gipangbuhat, ilang gibluhatonon. Whether one believes in a transcendent, loving God or not, he showed how people could intuit an order to things that was inherent to all being that existed. Whether one was a believer or not, one could see that there's this order which is the ground of people's wholeness and self-realization. Many philosophers up to this day build upon this idea of a natural order upon which is founded a natural law. Even in legal theories, this foundational idea is influential. However, as Western civilization evolved, other theories also evolved which insist that the foundation of norms for the good should be rooted in human reason alone. In this school of thought, Immanuel Kant would be most important thinker. So the rigid nato ang may bawaan kung nagtuo ka or wala ka nagtuo, kuan Japon ka kanang belong ra Japon ka sa ilaha. So that's all and thank you, ma'am.